Hello, and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, October 16th. My name is Chris Dodson, and with us today is Alex Nagy, our sign language interpreter. Due to the length of today's agenda, please go to the Legislative Information Center via the City Council website to read the bills that are up for preliminary vote. You can find the link in the business drop-down on the city's pittsburghpa.gov website. Click Legislative Information Center. From there, click the red launch button. This will take you to the council meeting calendar. Find the meeting for today's date. Click on Agenda. The meeting agenda should open with all the bills for discussion today. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Good morning and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee meeting of Wednesday, August 16, 2019. Our first order of business is public comment. Members of the public who want to address County Council, please come forward. You will be given 3 minutes. The green light means you have 3 minutes. The yellow light means you have 1 minute to summarize. Red light means your time has expired. Please relinquish the podium. As I've stated many times before, the purpose of public comment is to address matters of concern which are or may be before council. Profanity will not be permitted and order will be maintained at all times. First speaker, please.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live in the Hill District. You know, I've been coming down here for over 20-something years, and I feel that as residents of this city, this council, and the people in the audience don't pay attention to what we're saying. They talk amongst themselves, but I want to say something to Mr. Burgess, because my feelings and my grandchildren's feelings were hurt when my 5-year-old and 4-year-old, well, the 5-year-old spoke. Okay. He said as they were leaving, and that really hurt me, he said, "This is not the time and the place." Well, let me explain something to you. From the time my 18-year-old was born, for 12 years, I babysat her. She sat in here. Mr. Furlow used to laugh because she was a baby. Sometimes she'd be saying, nah. Okay, but the other one is 16 that I came down and told you she was going to Ireland. The 16-year-old was 7 years old and in the second grade up at Northview. The teacher was saying that they didn't have pencils, they didn't have books or whatever they didn't have. You know that 7-year-old put up her hand and said that you need to go to city council. The teacher said, "City council? What would they do?" She said, "You go to city council to tell them what you need." 7-year-old knows that you're supposed to listen to us, to listen to our needs. Now, my grandson is in his 20s. He came down and he was about 9. Mr. Riccardi sent him a shirt from the police, and it's checkered. He wore it to school. They laughed. He said, "B-Mom, they laughed at me in this shirt." You know what he said? They said I looked like a cab driver. But you know what he said? "I don't care. I told them." Mr. Riccardi, the president of city council, gave that to me. I taught them to respect coming to city council. I taught them to respect you, that we're supposed to ask you to help us. But you can say that they have no right. What age? It says public comment, and they are children. And you know, out of the mouths of babes, for an old man like you to actually take and tear down my babies and say they have no right to speak, this is public comment, not. And you know what they told me? You know what, the newspaper man, I went to him, you know what he said? "You know, Miss Brown, he don't like you." He thought I was talking about Krause. When I said, he said, "What?" He said, "But you know you're a whistleblower. You told when he was taking that money from the URA for his church. I told when you hollered at Miss Rudiak, my wife tells me that you're talking about me." Even she said, "What is that?" I told you don't ever attack. I also know there's quite a few. I'm a whistleblower. That's what the newspaper man told me. I'm a whistleblower. That's why you don't want me to speak.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. The next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. Seeing no other speakers, we'll ask that you please call the roll.
Mr. Cargill. Ms. Gross. Mrs. Harris.
Here.
President Krause. Here. Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor. Here. Mrs. Kell Smith. Mrs. Strasburger.
Here.
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you very much. I'm going to word council in a minute. I'm going to skip around a little bit on the agenda because of our guests. All right, so we're going to start with the Finance and Law Committee, of which I am a chair, but we're going to go down to Bill 2019-2137.
Bill 2137, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 210 of the City Code, the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to accept a donation from Ramon Foster for $9,500 to assist the City Bureau of Police with reestablishing the mounted unit.
I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. That takes us to the
Safety? I'm sorry. I apologize. I was getting settled. Where are we?
we were talking about the horse. Now we're going to go to public
Someone
safety.
donated money.
Somebody, yeah, we were talking about, I was joking. We were
Bill
really talking about the mounted,
2137.
reestablishing the
Oh,
mounted
got it.
unit.
Thank you very much.
And now I want to go, on which page? The seven. Thank you very much. I'm trying to find it while I'm talking. I want to go to Public Safety Services Committee, where Mr. Lavelle is the chair. Here we go. I have a new paper.
Bill 2143, resolution authorizing the city to purchase automated external defibrillators and heart monitors from Zoll Medical Corporation at an overall cost not to exceed $3,097,000.
The motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Heard Mr. Cross first. Mr. Cross.
Coming up, Director, right? Yeah,
Because he's
please.
closer to you.
Please come up, yeah, and your guest, please. He wishes to make a brief presentation. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Hey, Chief.
Morning.
Please.
Wendell Hesrick, Director of Public Safety.
Ron Romano, EMS Chief.
Mark Pinchuk, Assistant Chief, EMS.
Tony Landolina, Assistant Director, Public Safety Administration.
I understand you wish to make a brief presentation?
Yes, this is probably one of the more aggressive investments that we've done since I've arrived, been here for 4 years. Currently, the heart monitor defibrillators on the EMS side, the medic units, are about 15 to 16 years old. The AEDs, which are currently on the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire vehicles, are almost 4 or 5 years, which is about the capacity, the limitations of the batteries on those. The monitors are way past their 10-year lifespan, and what we have decided to do with public safety, with your concurrence, is to basically replace all the AEDs throughout the city on the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire and the heart monitors, which will allow us to have compatibility so that when you arrive on a scene, the first responders arrive on the scene, the pads will be placed on the patient, and when the medics arrive, all it will entail is unplugging the pads and plugging the heart monitor and defibrillator. In addition, we are going to place AEDs on police vehicles within the city. Our first responder program with Narcan has saved numerous lives, as well as the tourniquets the police officers use day in and day out. And now I think it's time for the next step, which is to put the automatic external defibrillators on police vehicles. In addition to that, we will also place them on the animal care and control vehicles. The training is very limited, or it doesn't take that much time to train individuals. They're trained in the AED along with CPR. So the idea is, like Narcan, is to put as many AEDs throughout the city as possible. And with that being said, we hope to purchase 80 AEDs for police, 7 for emergency management, 4 for our hazmat personnel, 4 for animal care and control, and 118 for fire, and 68 defibrillator monitors. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Chief Romano for anything additional he has. I think the new technology has increased during the last 15 years, and it's not only 3 leads, which when I was a paramedic back in the 80s, they're now utilizing 12 leads to be able to monitor different portions of the heart and the electrical system. So Chief Romano.
Thanks, Director. Welcome, Chief. How are you? Good morning.
Thank you. Just to add that not only is this is not a year investment, this is a 10-year or greater investment to show you that our present ones are in the 15-year range and have come to their end of life. And I had briefed the director since his arrival in Pittsburgh that, you know, this project would have to occur, you know, at this time. And so we've been monitoring this. And so we're at end of life for these monitors. The repair, the parts, et cetera, will all be going away in the next year. So we've come to the point where we have to spend the money. But like I said, it will be over a 10-year period that we'll have these. So if you plot that out, plus adding all the AEDs throughout the city. Assistant Chief Pinchuk can give you some of the basic information. He oversees all our training, and he spearheaded the committee for the new monitors and what they'll be able to do for us.
Morning, Chief. Welcome.
Good. Do you have any specific questions, or you want me to I have some background information here.
The only thing I would ask, I'm happy to support and will support, only that I ask that we have sort of a phased program, you know, that in 10 years we're not replacing the entire unit again, that we understand that they're going to have limited lifespans and that we have a system in place to replace over a period of time. That's all. But I'm happy to support and thank you for your work.
Yeah, so where this comes in being really important, and if anyone from council is interested, I have the latest statistical analysis from the CDC database, CARES.
Please.
I have some of these here if anyone's interested. So we really push the limits in our current resuscitation programs of what can be done pre-hospitally. If you see from this data analysis, our cardiac arrest, which is one of our core resuscitation programs, we outperform the region, the state, and nationally, both for delivering patients to the hospital alive, survival to discharge, and survival to discharge with a good neurologic outcome. But despite all that, when you look statistically, the things that it really determines if someone's going to live or die is someone witnesses the arrest, someone starts CPR, and time to defibrillation for shockable rhythm. So those are the patients we really go after, and we do a very good job between us and fire getting to those patients early and starting resuscitation. But cardiac arrest is such a time-sensitive emergency, especially for the brain, that the area where we can improve these outcomes is getting more layperson CPR in the public, which we do a lot of CPR training for the public, and getting more defibrillators into the community. So the more AEDs we have out there, the more patients we can get those on have shockable rhythms. That greatly improves your survival. Survival from a shockable rhythm arrest, such as ventricular fibrillation or pulseless ventricular tachycardia, decreases approximately 10% per minute. So if we have more AEDs in the community, we really boost that survival of what's going to be our biggest bucket of the survivors. And we've had some good cases this year where AEDs have saved lives. We had a city employee who suffered a cardiac arrest. One of our medics who also volunteers for suburban service was nearby with an AED, shocked him, and he survived. At the last Steeler home game, while the cart incident was going on, we had a gentleman collapse in sudden cardiac arrest up in the stands. We had our personal right there. He was defibrillated several times and actually was survived and discharged from the hospital this week. So this is known technology. It works. It will improve our survival in the city. So I would ask, if possible, we can get your support for it.
Happy to. Thank you. You must be very proud of the work you do. Thank you.
Yeah, we are very proud of our people, and they do a good job. And our goal is always generate the best outcomes we can in the country. So
that's obvious. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Happy to help.
Ms. Harris.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. The old ADs, will they, still, some of them are still working, obviously. Would they be given out to parts of the community that might not have them? And
Well, part of the deal with the Zoll is they will collect all of those. Due to the fact they're also at their end of life, plus it's part of the trading, it's a trade-in value.
okay, thank you. The other question was, you'll be able to tap in, but will the hospitals be able to tap into these also?
As far as purchasing these AEDs, or?
No, you said you can unplug and.
No, we would have to release the information to them.
You're talking about the pads themselves.
Right.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
there
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yeah.
I understand the UPMC and Allegheny Health Network are using a lot of the Zoll product throughout their emergency departments. So yes, they would be an easy switch over once we arrive with the patient.
Okay,
And that's also a cost saving to us, because then they'll replace the pad, and we won't have to purchase a replacement pad. So it's a cost saving for us also.
okay. And these will fit adults, children. Now they're also going on animal care and control. Would you have the pads for the animals?
No, we won't have anything for animals. There's not really any good literature as far as resuscitating an animal with defibrillation without a manual defibrillator, because the energy settings would be completely different. So there's no animal AEDs that I'm aware of right now.
Have you checked with vets on
Some
that?
of our personnel are trained in CPR for animals and resuscitation,
Right.
have went to some courses.
Okay. And I was just wondering if there was a smaller pad than for a child.
Yes, this is all, our present technology that we've been using has that, and all, this new technology also handles all for children and adults.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Coghill?
Thanks for being here, guys.
Our pleasure.
No problem. So I know a friend of mine, we all know probably Billy Mullen, probably wouldn't be here today without a defibrillator so many years ago. I don't know how many years ago it was, some time ago. But the technology today, is it even better than what it was then? And I know, Director, I heard you mention the technology.
It's at least over 10 years.
It's 10, at least, yeah, right, yeah. It's been a while.
So they're always refining the technologies on these, and what gets refined is energy waveform delivery. So 10 years ago, we didn't use what we call biphasic energy patterns. Now we do, that appears to be more efficient at energizing the heart to convert a chaotic rhythm. So these will be the state-of-the-art technology as far as energy delivery, waveform, and quality improvement functions.
Great, thanks, Mark. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, but a defibrillator, I'm still learning how to use the fire extinguisher, okay? Is there some sort of training for a defibrillator? Is it simple? Is it an easy?
Yeah, they're actually designed that if you knew nothing about it, in theory, you should be able to pull it off a wall, look at the instructions,
Right.
and be able to use it. We do offer free training to the community,
Right.
just on how to do compression-only CPR and how to use a AED defibrillator.
Yeah,
So
I should come to that, honestly.
Yeah,
CPR especially.
We'll bring it out anywhere. We bring it out. It's a free course, and we're actually doing one of the high schools end part of the month. We're
That's
in the
great.
Brashear.
That's great.
So it's been a very successful program. We train around 1,500 people per year with that. And if you have anyone in your districts that wants the course, we'll bring it out.
That's great. I'll take advantage of that, Mark.
Yeah.
The other thing, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It would not hurt you to take it, but
Right.
also when you take it off the wall, you turn it on, it starts telling you what to do.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, it's simple for, okay, that's good. And you answered the other question about the animal. So the idea of the animal control having those is just have more on the street and other locations.
That's correct.
Not to
Yeah.
resuscitate animals. Right.
Yeah.
And not that I'm against resuscitating animals, Ms. Harris. So that's it for me. So thanks. I'll be supportive, of
I
course.
just
You know,
checked with the vet.
we have the best public safety, whether it be fire, paramedic, or police, and I believe they need the best equipment. So,
Thank you.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bill 2144, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency Gun Violence Reduction Initiative to add Operation Ceasefire outreach workers and provide training, and further providing for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $250,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
What number we
Good
on
morning.
now?
We are on, we're on page 8,
2144.
Bill
I don't have that
2144, and it's receive a PCCD grant.
Okay.
You want to have discussion about this? Who made the motion? Mr. Lavelle. You have the
No, this is for a grant that we've already been granted. This is to execute on the actual grant that'll provide additional outreach workers for our group violence
Commissioner Crum.
reduction initiative.
No, PCDV. All right. So in the coordinators and the people are here. If you want to talk to them. Ms. Smith.
I just want to call for a post-agenda regarding the entire program, so the GVI program.
All right. So there's a motion to call for a post-agenda on GVI. Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Any conversation about the grant proposal, receiving the grant funds? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Thank you very much. That takes us through the Public Works Committee. We'll go back to the land use and, we'll go back to the finance and law and move through the agenda. We have 2 companion bills, 2019-2180 in law and finance. Its companion bill is on page 8 under Public Works, and they are together, and so that's 2181. They are both about the park in East Liberty, and so if you read those two together.
Bill 2180, resolution authorizing the conveyance of a portion of Enright Parklet to Penley Park South, Inc., and accepting certain property in the 8th Ward of the city for public purposes to become part of Enright Parklet. Bill number 2181, resolution authorizing the acceptance by the city of the grant of an easement in the 8th Ward, 9th Council District of the city by Penley Park South, Inc., pursuant to the provisions of PPS, revised amended preliminary land development plan approved by the Planning Commission February 12, 2019, as further amended by the order of the Court of Common Pleas.
Need a couple of things. First of all, I need a motion to approve.
A motion to approve
Need
with
a
discussion.
second. Second, Ms. Cross.
So on behalf of Reverend Burgess, I'm going to offer up a verbal amendment on 2181. We are going to amend the word reservations to the word conditions, and that's the only technical part of the amendment.
All right, so let's do the amendment first. All those, the amendment has been moved. I need a second for the amendment. All right, properly moved in second.
Where is 2180?
2180 is the first bill, first page.
Not in the title, those words are not in the title.
Yeah, it's not in the
So
title.
that is-
Yeah,
Not-
I don't have that either.
It's in the text.
Do you know where in the text?
Sean has been working on this with me from my office.
We just have the bill, please.
Is it 2181 or 2180?
Both, they're two
Good
different.
morning, council members. I'm Sean Carter, Special Assistant in the Office of Councilman Burgess. The bill Councilman Kraus just sponsored the amendment on is Bill number 2181 in the Public Works Committee. The amendment is changing one word in Section 3. I don't know where the bill is in your packet.
Here, why don't you show me?
Just the following conditions.
Right here.
Okay.
Page, I'm not sure if she has the same number as we have. For
Right
us, it's
here.
page,
This word is just being changed to the word conditions.
It's on the second page.
got it? Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Thank you for the amendment. Now, the second thing, we have to do two other things. One is I need a motion to hold a public hearing on these two bills.
Hold 1 week.
We need both.
Hold 1 week first?
We can do either
That's
way.
what I have.
Go ahead. We can do either way.
Okay, so we need a motion to hold bills 2180 and 2181 for 1 week.
All right, we'll come back next week. And by the way, we're doing this out of court order. So the court has ruled and it comes back to us. So that's why we're doing it this way. So the motion to hold, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposers, nay. And then finally,
And finally, a motion to hold a cablecast public hearing on bills 2180 and 2181.
need such a motion. Second. Properly moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. All right, and the public hearing has already been scheduled. The date of that public hearing is going to be October 28th at 1:30, I think. All right, Thank you very much for
Thanks,
your
Sean.
indulgence. That takes us to a deferred paper.
Bill 2109, resolution amending Resolution 762, which authorizes the Director of Finance to enter into a contract or agreement with the Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group. The contract period was originally November 1st to December 31st, 2018, renewable annually for up to 3 years by mutual agreement of the parties at $25,000 for each year of service.
Need a motion?
A motion to approve with discussion,
Need a
please.
second?
Second.
Any conversation, Ms. Harris?
I believe we have guests here.
I said, I looked at you and said, Ms. Harris. Because I was thinking Mr. Cross
Thank you.
has the floor.
Good morning, Director. How are you?
Good morning, council members.
Welcome.
Margaret Lanier, Director of Finance.
Thanks, Director. Do you have a brief presentation for us on this?
The purpose of this legislation is to try to extend the contract. The contract ran out at the end of 2018. What had happened was in the legislation itself, there was option years that we could extend it. But it was in the contract, but it wasn't in the legislation. So what we're trying to do is clean it up so it can coincide with each other. Apparently, the contract ran out in 2018, and we're not able to pay them this year.
For last year?
For last year.
Do I have the floor?
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, okay. I wasn't sure.
And, you know,
So I'm sorry, you're advising us that this is technical in nature, but it will have a financial impact of $25,000.
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any more questions right now. I'll give the floor to Councilwoman.
And as you know,
Casper.
PCRG, they evaluate our lending institutions. And what we're trying to do by extending it, what we can do is have them lined up where we can do an RFP at the same time because they coincide with each other. PCRG evaluates the community reinvestment plans, and this information is presented to the Community Reinvestment Committee. So we're trying to extend it so when we do the RFP, we can do both of them, the depository and PCRG at one time.
So just one last question, so I'm clear on what I'm going to vote for. The financial impact is $25,000 a year, but it could go up to 3 years at $25,000 each year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions right now.
Ms. Smith?
So I think everyone knows, I was pretty critical of some of the nonprofits in the city, and especially in terms of housing. This has nothing to do with housing. This has everything to do with just the banking.
Banking. Mm-hmm.
And PCRG is located where?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't have that information in front of me. I apologize, but my assistant director was handling all this,
Yeah.
and she's off
No,
sick. But
I-
it's my understanding. I know they're in the city, but
They are in
where
the city because
exactly?
it's my understanding that they moved out of the city.
In the
I know they
Hill.
used to be in the Hill. Are
Hill
they
District.
still in the Hill? Here, I'll look up their address. But, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Center Avenue.
Yeah, so what you're saying is actual city residents aren't running it. So for me, I'll just say, I just always have concerns with using the nonprofits in the way that we do, and especially in terms of the housing issues. It's a big issue for me, big concern for me. But I do want to say that I want to thank you for your real estate department came to a resource fair that we had this week, and Aaron Pickett was very helpful and
Thank
helped
you.
a lot of residents. I want to acknowledge his work this weekend.
Thank you.
In that department. I'll probably abstain today on this vote.
Sarris?
Okay. Are you this one bill or two bills?
It's just one bill.
Okay. And what do we owe them money for?
They evaluate the lending data from the depositories, like the institutions and so forth.
Okay, from the
They owe them
institutions.
from
meaning
2018.
From where?
The banking
The
institutions.
banks. Okay. Okay, because I thought that they got paid by the community organizations.
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
You want to check on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gross.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group the local Community Reinvestment Act nonprofit that was created out of federal law to counteract redlining and mortgage racially backed mortgage discrimination?
Yes.
Okay, so what they
Indefinitely?
do is they analyze banking mortgage lending patterns to look for racial discrimination in mortgage lending.
That's correct, Councilwoman.
And is that the report that we're requesting here, or is it some other kind of banking report?
No, that's basically what they did.
So we're
So can I
looking,
just
it's
ask
kind
for
of like
clarity? So
monitoring.
is it supposed to be this group in perpetuity? I mean, just forever? It's supposed to be PCRG? There's never going to be an RFP or an offer to look into other
That's why I'm
groups?
asking for information, and maybe
Yeah.
you want to just, kind of get the facts for us,
Yeah,
because
that's what I want.
my history, civics history is getting a little fuzzy in my brain. It was like, Community Reinvestment
may be the only
Act
group
was
that
from
can
the
do it. I don't
1980s.
know.
Yeah, they may be because we put out an RFP and that's,
And
You
it
did?
requires
I'm sorry, Ms. Rose.
banks to report so that the public can see whether there is discrimination in mortgage lending. And I'm not sure if there are multiple, if there's like some federal credential or anything, or it's just, we're just required to show the reporting. So if we could get more information by Tuesday on
Sure.
kind of,
I will.
is this part of, I think this is part of compliance, but I'm not sure if there's leeway in how, the partners we used for compliance.
So just to be clear, compliance doesn't mean it has to be PCRG, though.
right.
That's right, that's what I don't understand.
That's all.
Okay, I'll get information
And
to
not
you.
that it should be somebody else, I just wanted more information.
So I'm doing
They're
it
in-
from memory.
Do they live in the city?
This predated our arrival on council, but my understanding is they use this information as part of the decision of what banks we invest in. That what banks we use, because the banks we use, of course, make a profit off of having access to our resources, to our $500 million annual budget, to our, because as banks, they borrow against that money every day.
So can I say something to that? Because that, to me, even lends more concern, because they also do a lot of work with banks. And so how do we know which banks they're suggesting we do banking with, and then they turn around and get grants from some of those banks? Please, they do, and they do it, they get grants.
I'm not
So
suggesting.
to me, I think it should be somebody who's not there's no conflict of interest.
I'm not suggesting who it should be or defending the organization. I'm talking really about process, right?
Yeah, no, I know what the process is. I'm
The
concerned.
process. So, there's a motion to approve on the table. Any other conversation? No other conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Thank you very much. We have a new paper.
Thank you.
Abstain.
2 abstentions. Next bill, please.
Bill 2136, resolution authorizing the issuing of a warrant in the amount of $47,000 in favor of Daniel Edelman and his attorney in full and final settlement of a litigation filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Second session
Motion to
request.
hold for executive session.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. I think that brings us to 2138.
Bill 2138, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of finance to execute an agreement of sale and all related documents necessary to effect the purchase of by the city in lieu of taken by eminent domain of 35 and 33 Cimetiere Street in the 26th Ward to accept a deed for the properties, further authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase, closing, and other associated auxiliary costs.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second discussion.
Yeah, when does
Discussion,
Marcus
Ms.
should have
Harris.
said. Was that the director?
It's
Oh, okay.
director.
Harris.
Morning, Director. Do you have a picture of both these? Give us your name, please. For
Karina Ricks, the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
Thank you. Do you have a picture of these two properties?
No, I didn't bring a picture. 35 Cimetiere there is a building upon that lot. 33 Cimetiere is just property that's associated with the same
Okay, was
building.
it 33 Cimetiere, the one that collapsed?
45 Cimetiere.
That's 45. Okay, and that's 35.
45 Cimetiere.
Okay, so we're not taking 45.
With this bill is
For 35
for
and
35 and 33
33.
Cimetiere.
Okay, So how far down from the building it collapsed?
It's next to
And-
it,
Okay, going towards Perry High School.
going the other direction.
The one that was just bought for 79,000.
Yes.
Okay, what's our payout on this?
The finance department is here. I believe it's 80,000. I can get that. It should be in the bill, the exact payout number from the Department of Finance of what we're doing, but it does. It's according to the appraised value, as is what's required of us.
This is the one that someone just bought not too long ago. Is it that
That's
property?
correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're not taking any of the houses on either side of it?
We don't require them. We require just this property for the retaining structure for the street.
Okay, because the street has collapsed up
The street
there.
is vulnerable to, some portion of the right-of-way has already.
This isn't the newer home. This is the one right down from the newer home.
So there's the home that collapsed at 45 Summiseer,
Right.
and then if you were to look at the collapsed home, it's to the left.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's the one that was just bought. And I'm trying to find that one in here. Okay, do you have it? No. Let me see the bill. The amount.
It's $95,500.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, is that for the property beside it and
It's for both
also-
properties, yeah. It's as per the appraisal study that the Department of Finance had conducted for it. So it's fair market value.
Okay, and that house was still standing upright.
It is still standing upright, yes.
Okay, and somebody just bought it for 79,000, not too long before.
Yes, the house was recently sold.
They weren't even in the
Kid
house
Marcus has
yet.
got landslides to take care of.
This is a landslide.
This is
There
a
was one coming
landslide.
down.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you might not know, but the city was supposed to stabilize that because Riverview Park and one of the paths, well, it was a trail, and someone built the trail and extended the trail on and down the street closer to Perry High School. I believe it was 3 or 4 houses were the first ones to go. Maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago. And evidently nothing was done to stabilize that street at that time. So what we've had is buildings still collapsing. And we're up to the newer home now. Actually, it's come in on the other end, too. Is Public Works or anyone going to stabilize that so no one else loses their homes?
We are stabilizing. The purpose of this acquisition is so that we can build the retaining structures to stabilize the slope just below Summiseer Street.
Okay, which would extend from
It would extend from
basically-
33 Summiseer through 45 Summiseer.
Okay, what about below?
So this will secure the top of the hillside. We're also concurrently working with the Department of Public Works on stabilization plans for Riverview Park itself.
Okay, the wall, is it going to be built up by the street or down?
It's going to be
by-
built right by the street. It will not be built in the park property. It will be built where these private properties are, which is the need for the taking, or for the acquisition.
Okay, well then what is Public Works? Is Public Works here at all? What are they going to do to stabilize?
We're working with Public Works to stabilize the balance of the park. There's land movement, as you know, throughout that whole hillside.
Due
So
to
due to
The collapsing of
due to the
the trail
geotechnical,
that man decided to stretch.
there are soil conditions that make that entire hillside subject to land movement.
That's on every hillside. That's why we look at hillside property. But this was supposed to be stabilized by Riverview Park when the first three, you weren't here yet.
I don't think that we can conclusively say that there was any kind of action
It's
that
been
we could
moving
have.
up.
Correct, but I don't know that there's anything that we could say that there was action we could have taken to prevent the events that happened on Summerseer Street itself. We now have designs that we can implement to secure that roadway and stabilize any future activity from happening in there. So that's what we're pursuing this acquisition in order to do.
But that's the sidewalk. That's up on the top
And the
side.
street itself, yes.
And the street.
Yes.
Then there's the houses. And then there's Riverview Park. Okay. And Riverview Park has been moving.
Yes.
That has moved back when the other houses
Yes.
fell. So that wouldn't be yours because it's parks.
We're providing engineering expertise with the Department of Public Works to look at that landslide as well. There's multiple separate sections of land movement that are happening along that whole
That's
hillside.
what they said when the first four houses went down. I hope, for the sake of the people that still live there, that something is done this time, because it wasn't done before. Those houses collapsed. Riverview kept moving, and down came the other houses. This house that we're paying for is more stable than what the houses were below. I realize the street is undermined now, and the sidewalk, but that's up here, and that's Domi's job. Okay, and then there's the home, and then there's the park that's been sliding. And due to the park sliding, has done a lot with those homes that are there. And I believe that's Public Works. That's not you. So you're going to do geology's studies on that hillside down by Riverview Park?
They're already underway.
In Riverview Park?
Yes, they're already
Okay.
underway.
What about the studies they were supposed to do about 7-8 years ago? They're
Can't
not.
speak to that. I don't know.
Can you find out if Public Works still has them? Because the city of Pittsburgh paid for them. I
Yes.
was out there when they did them.
Yes, so we're using past, there has been obviously this hillside has had a long history to it, and so we're using all available information as we're going forward with the design work with the Department of Public Works to mitigate the rest of the slide activity.
I believe where they did the geology studies last time was not by Riverview Park, where the slide had actually started and occurred when the people were calling for that to be fixed.
We'll look into it.
Please. And I'm not blaming you
Sure, yeah.
or Domi, because you weren't here yet when the first houses went down. But I probably have pictures of what that looks like at the park level. If you like, Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cargill.
I'll be real brief. And I know of the situation Councilwoman Harris has there. That the funds to buy them out, and I had a conversation with the mayor about this, that we have reserve funds, emergency funds for such a case. I hope not to have to use them, But I don't want to use up all those funds on her geology studies either, you know what I'm saying? So is that going to be replenished? Is there enough there to take care of any other catastrophes? Do you know of that?
So the geotechnical studies and the engineering studies generally come out of the slope funds. It's the acquisition of properties that are part of the settlement funds that are used for those acquisitions. So they're two different funding sources. So the geotechnical studies would not come out of the same pool of funding that you're referencing.
So if I have a house flooded off its borings in my district, we'll find the money for...
Well, it's a different... I can't answer, but it's a different source of funds is what I can answer.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But probably from the same source that comes out of the,
For the
land site.
acquisition.
Yeah, for the acquisition.
For the
That's right.
acquisition, yeah.
That's right. Okay, thanks.
Any other conversation? See no other conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. That takes us to the invoices, I believe. Invoices are on the table. Need a motion for the invoices.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation about the invoices? Seeing no conversation about the invoices, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Turn my pages.
Departmental, we do.
There are interdepartmental transfers. I need a motion for interdepartmental transfers.
So moved.
Need a second. Any conversation? They're on the Ms. Harris.
Okay, they're taking from furniture and fixtures for operational supplies. So is that like cleaning supplies?
It's on page 7. There's a note says this transfer is needed to cover anticipated expenses related to HVAC, and minor roof repairs, plumbing repairs related to backups and leaks, and bulk material purchases.
Okay, I didn't
for ball
see
field
that. Thank you.
Renovations. Any other conversation? Seeing no conversation, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. All right, now there is a request to go to page 10. Oh, the P-cards, I'm sorry, P-cards are on the table.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation about the P-cards? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. There is a request to go to page 10, Human Resources Committee, since we have the directors just sitting here. Under Ms. Harris is the chair, we have a new paper.
Bill 2114, resolution amending resolution number 742, which authorized the city to enter into a professional service agreement with P&A Group for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act program by increasing the authorized spending amount by $90,000.
Need a motion, Ms. Harris?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Conversation about this $90,000. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
2115, resolution providing that the city enter into a memorandum of agreements and/or contract with the Corporation for National and Community Service for the purpose of obtaining AmeriCorps Vista members to work with staff from city departments and the Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, on strategic project and research for a sum not to exceed $72,000 over 3 years for the payment of costs thereof.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Conversation about the vistas. And if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Thank you very much, Director, for your
Director,
patience.
Can I also thank you for this weekend participating in the resource fair in District 2? Not only did she send staff, but she attended and stayed the whole day, so thank you very much.
All right, that takes us to the page 8 now. Let's go back to Public Works Committee. Ms. Kell Smith is chair. Let's exhaust our committee. We have a deferred paper.
Bill 1909, ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh City Code, Title I, Administrative Chapter 156, creating a clean sweep division within the Department of Public Works in order to oversee and improve the maintenance of vacant city-owned properties and to formalize the status of the division.
Motion.
Need a motion?
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
Need a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2002, resolution vacating a portion of Gatlin Street in the 10th Ward 7 Council District.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Ms. Gross?
Do you mind if I, Councilwoman?
No, I'm sorry.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So my staff has been doing research. I just wanted to update council just briefly, because I feel like these things come up increasingly in other districts. So what looked like, a paper street that two neighbors have always been able to just kind of take on the property of, is our normal process. Turns out it's LLCs who have acquired many, many parcels who are looking for development, and so now we're looking to make sure that we have kind of neighborhood input on this. It's developers. So I just wanted to say that's why we're digging into this and trying to track down what's actually happening. They've acquired many parcels side by side, wedged in between Butler Street and the riverfront in a real steep riverbank that they're trying to propose building on. So just keeping you updated. So can I have 3 weeks this time? Motion to hold 3 weeks?
Motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Held for 3 weeks. New paper.
Bill 2146, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement with NLX North America, Inc. for energy consultant services in connection with the city's aggregate purchase of electricity, along with other members of the Western Pennsylvania Energy Consortium.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. Ms. Harris?
I think Councilwoman Gross also had some concerns on this one.
Sorry, I was briefing, I was still talking about Gallatin. Can I-
2146.
2146.
I apologize.
It's the Western Pennsylvania Energy Consortium.
No, I'm okay with this.
Right. Ms. Harris?
Who's here? Not what you said.
Maybe I'll remember in a second if I had questions.
You did.
We
You said maybe we should have a briefing about it.
And I didn't bring notes with me, I apologize.
Just brief. I'll just say. Remind you. You just suggested a briefing for council.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Morning. Welcome.
Give us a little briefing here.
Chris Hornstein, Assistant Director of Public Works. So I'll let Sarah speak on this behalf because she's been spearheading this effort.
Yeah, so with this contract, we're looking to hire NLX as a consultant to help us with our energy procurement. This is kind of phase one of our energy procurement. And the main role of NLX will be to ensure that we can execute an actual supply contract, that we're getting the best deal possible, and so that we working on our behalf to save us money. And then they'll also be doing our bill auditing, ensuring that as we move forward with the supply contract, those contracts are as favorable for the city as they can be, and that also over the term of that contract, we're getting the right billing rate and the right prices for our electricity. So we've worked with NL in the past as part of the Western Pennsylvania Energy Consortium, and through this buying consortium, they work on behalf of the city as well as the other about 35 members.
All right, Ms. Gross.
Okay, thank you. So I think one of the things that I want to make sure we know is whether or not there's any revenue sharing here. So is this a contract that we're just paying, we're paying like with PCRG, we're going to give you $25,000. How much money is it?
So with this contract, there's no upfront cost, but when we execute the supply contract for the actual electricity supply, they work with the supplier and add kind of an additive to that supply cost.
Okay,
so that will come
commission,
in,
basically.
Yeah, so that will come in the supply the supply contract.
And can you describe what that commission looks like?
Currently, it's about 0.007 cents per kilowatt hour. So
That doesn't really say anything to me.
So currently,
sorry.
So our entire utility spend is about $5 million a year. Of that, about 80,000 usually is for the NL contract.
Okay, and we pay them 80,000 because if we didn't pay them, what would happen?
So the first piece is actually executing a supply contract. So they work on our behalf to aggregate and look at who our possible suppliers could be, and really create those terms and conditions for us. They're the energy market experts that work kind of as an owner's rep for the city of Pittsburgh and for the Energy Consortium. So that's the first part, is making sure that we actually enter into kind of the right contract for us for our supply. But then they've also worked on our behalf and have found quite a few billing errors over the past kind of term of our agreement with them. So they've also gotten us a number of rebates from different programs and different kind of money that's on the table. But I've also found billing errors where we've been overcharged for electricity or charged the wrong rate. or charge taxes on our electricity. So they do a lot of that bill auditing and kind of data management on our behalf as well, to make sure that we're not being overcharged anywhere.
Are we paying less energy bills each year?
We have been, yes. So in the past, we've done a reverse energy auction, and so again, the consultant services have been to run that reverse energy auction where we lock in one energy price for 3 years, for about a 3-year supply contract. And so that's been, the consultant has worked to make sure that those prices are continuing to kind of decrease. With our new structure, it's going to be a little bit more of an active management role as we're looking at some of our energy reduction goals as well as our renewable goals. So NL is going to work to create a sub-account within PJM, within our energy markets, that allows us more flexibility and more control over how much energy we use, the cost of energy, as well as where we get our energy from. So they help us reduce that cost as well as then integrate renewables and efficiency to get towards some of our climate goals.
So just like, again, buying on these very complicated markets where the energy is kind of being swapped out from different sources. You're buying renewable energy, but it's actually maybe not actually the actual energy that's coming all the way from a state 4 states away.
Yeah.
from wind farm in Iowa or something. It's not actually that energy, but it's a swapped out energy that's getting here.
Yeah.
So there are specialists in these markets.
And they help kind of balance our goals around renewables as well as our goals about cost savings.
So I like to make sure that we have on the record these kinds of complicated arrangements, just because we've gotten ourselves into trouble before, as I'd like to remind council on these operate and maintain agreements, this does not look and smell like one of those. We're basically just using them as a buying agent, like a real estate agent kind of thing.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you for making that clear. And then what's the term again? You just kind of said that we're usually buying on a 3-year, but I only see this as like a contract for 1 year.
So this is a contract for 4 years with 2 possible 1-year extensions. In the past, we have done 3-year contracts, but because we are changing our kind of structure around energy procurement, having 4 years allows for more flexibility, and then those additional 1-year extensions allows us to purchase into future markets where we can get more favorable prices.
It does say that. So section 1 says literally energy consultant services for a term of 4 years plus 2 additional 1-year renewal periods. And then earlier in the text, it says that this one is expiring, or this contract would commence June 2020?
So our current energy supply contract as well as our current energy consultant contracts expire at the end of May of 2020. So that's when our new supply contract would kind of take place, is at the end of May of 2020, which is then when the payment for NLX would begin. So they'll help us now with that establishment of a supply contract. So our NL contract would start now, and then our supply contract would start May of 2020.
What happens if everything you all have proposed in the climate action plan magically appears tomorrow or on June 30th, 2020, and we need to buy only half as much energy?
So that's the other piece about this new structure, is it allows us to reduce our energy loads. When we've done the 3-year kind of fixed term, fixed price, we were guaranteeing that we would use X amount of power. And if we reduced by too much, we would be penalized because we're
That's
not meeting
bad.
our end of the agreement. So with the new structure of doing a sub-account within the energy markets, it allows for more flexibility. So we can look at how much we're spending now, how much energy we're using, and what our kind of phased goals are, so that we're buying the correct amount for our usage and allowing us to do.
So we're still going to enter a contract with some range of goals. So if there was magic fairy dust and we like discovered like a new source of energy and didn't need to buy any, or just needed to buy like 10%, we'd still be penalized.
We would not. Under the current structure, we would be. Under the one we're proposing here and moving forward, we would not be. So we can self-select how much energy we want to purchase instead of just locking
Even
in.
within the 4 years?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't realize what my questions were because I had entirely forgotten talking about this. But I think I've got it. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Ms. Harris.
I think what we used to do is the 3-year and say it was 5 million, and we would pay no more than that. So if we had a benefit, we still received it.
In our current contract and kind of how we've done it in the past, we have locked in that 3-year contract with a fixed price per kilowatt hour. However, when we did that agreement, we basically guarantee to our supplier that we're going to use a certain amount of energy. And for that certain amount of energy, we're being guaranteed that fixed price. But because of the cost they have to incur to kind of buy that energy on our behalf, if we don't fulfill our end of the agreement to use that amount of energy, they still have incurred costs, so those costs get passed on to us whether or not we use the electricity. And so that's why we're moving away from that
I didn't
model.
think that those costs came back at us. I thought we actually saved within it. So isn't that correct?
So we have saved over past contracts because we've reduced that per kilowatt hour cost. And that's part of like what the consortium has allowed to do by aggregating a lot of large loads together. We are able to reduce our per kilowatt hour cost. But there still is a penalty assessed if we were to, for instance, meet our 50% energy reduction goals.
And what would that penalty be if we don't use it?
I don't know off the top of my head what that would be. I
Could
can
you
look.
look for me?
Yeah. And so that's for our previous contracts. That would not apply with kind of that 2020, May of 2020, when we enter into a new agreement. We would no longer have that issue with
Can I see exactly what happened in the last 3 years?
We can, yeah, we have all of the data around our utilities spend as well as the amount of energy we used over the past contract.
Okay, and before Tuesday, so I can look at it. And is this the same company we used in the past?
It is the same company we've used in the past. We did an RFP process to select them this time around. So we issued a new RFP, but did choose them again.
Were they the lowest?
Yeah. They were the lowest as well as kind of the most reputable company. They've worked with a number of other similar consortiums, which is not all that common. What we're doing is kind of at the forefront of kind of engaging with energy markets for a city. And so they're the only company who responded to our RFP who has worked with a similar kind of structure and buying consortium and process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you remember if we had penalties in the last 3 years past?
I don't recall any penalties.
Okay.
But also, like as Sarah's alluding to, the way the old structure was, we're not really incentivized to save electricity usage, because if we significantly do reduce it under the current contract, we would incur a penalty.
Could you actually, show me with a kilowatt for the 3 years and, sort of everything down a lane of what
absolutely.
had occurred in the last 3 years? And that would be with this company, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we're doing the exact same thing, or we're doing something somewhat different this time?
Yeah, so we'll be changing how we procure energy. Instead of that fixed rate 3-year agreement with a supplier, we'll still enter into a contract with a supplier, but we're going to be creating what is called a PJM sub-account. PJM is our electricity grid for the East Coast. And so by creating a sub-account within PJM, we become wholesale buyers. So we're able to buy more frequently as markets change. We're able to access the lowest prices. And then we're also buying on the wholesale market. So we'll save money there as well by transitioning to wholesale instead of resale.
Can you show me that also on paper?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other conversation? See no conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill
One abstention.
So moved. Bill 2147, resolution finally locating right-of-ways and accepting the dedication of roadways, which are part of the Convention Center roadway improvement phases 1 through 3, and vacating portion of 10th Street adjacent to the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, no longer used for roadway purposes.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Conversation, Ms. Harris.
Who's here?
Are you here for this?
Good morning again, Director. Still morning. Good morning again. Do you have sort of a drawing on what this is going to look like?
The street, the work is already done. This is a backlog of just sort of cleaning up our records. You'll note there's a whole list of these easements and dedications that are coming today. And that's just cleaning up files so that we can make these things official. But yes, I have a...
Okay, so we didn't vote to have this done, or why are we voting?
We're now accepting this as...
We're accepting the street?
Yeah, as the rights of way. So this one is accepting the dedication of roadways from the convention center.
Okay, why are we accepting this one when we don't have the streets accepted up in Brighton Heights yet? In Old Allegheny?
Have they been submitted?
They have been submitted. The URA said they submitted them to the city, and those homeowners are still waiting, and nothing has occurred yet for the city to accept them. The streets are considered Old Allegheny behind the Brighton Heights swimming pools.
Okay. We can look at that and see where those are in the process, and if all the materials have been submitted, if they've been,
I think
constructed
they've been
according
submitted, and then they've been
to
submitted
city.
again.
Okay.
Because the URA says it's in the city's hands now, and those homeowners have been waiting and waiting, and nothing has been done. It's considered Old Allegheny, and it's behind the pool, and the ball fields, and then the swimming pool there.
Okay.
It's at those streets back there.
We'll follow.
It's not many. It's just.
We'll follow up on it. As you know, we Eileen Papale retired, and it's taken us a little while to get back on our feet. She had sort of special knowledge in this area, and so we're working through.
I think it takes 10 people to fill her shoes.
It kind of does, yes.
Yeah. And I'll tell her you said that because
so.
She was a great lady and knew the city back and forth.
She really does, and knew the process.
But at that time, it was still, I guess, playing around with the URA. But
I'll follow up.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Let me know.
Okay. Motion to approve on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2148, resolution granting unto Pittsburgh Public School, Langley, their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use of their own cost and expense protective railing at 2940 Sheridan Boulevard in the 20th Ward, 2nd Council District.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
2149, resolution granting unto Penditic LLC, their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a canopy-covered entrance ramp and stoop at 5226 and 5230 Penn Avenue, 8th Ward, 9th Council District.
Motion to approve.
Need a motion to approve. Ms. Gross?
Thank you. I just have a small amendment. This is actually the 7th Council District. So I'm supportive of the bill, but if I could just motion to amend, it says 9th Council District. It's right, that's like a block away from the border.
Oh, it's in your district.
But it's officially in 7th.
Second.
Thank
So
you.
you want a verbal amendment? Second, technical.
Where's that?
So this bill title says, so it's, you know how you have the Octopus Garden, but I have the Children's Home? This is even a block west, so it's right next to Aldi, which is in my district.
Yep.
Funny landmarks if you all don't know the locations.
She made a technical amendment. She's amending this location. All those in favor, first of all, the amendment, is there, a verbal amendment has been made. Need a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Takes us to the motion to approve. Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2150, resolution granting unto UPMC Mercy, their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense an aerial pedestrian bridge over the right-of-way to connect UPM's New Vision Center to their existing UPMC Mercy Hospital facilities at Marion Street, First Ward, 6th Council District.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? Conversation, Ms. Harris?
Yes. Who's here? You should just stay up here and hang in with us. What are they actually going over here?
They're going over Marion Street.
Okay. I'm
This is in the Uptown District.
Right.
Uptown neighborhood.
Okay.
I think I have a map.
Thank you.
So-
She's going to show me so we can go ahead.
All right, next bill, please.
Bill 2151, resolution granting unto UPMC Mercy, their successors and assign the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a utility tunnel connection from proposed building to existing underground utilities, as well as placing tree pits at 1622 Locust Street in the First Ward, 6th Council District.
Need a motion.
To approve.
Is there a second? All right. Ms. Harris,
Okay.
This is actually in Councilman LaBelle's district.
yes.
Right.
You okay now?
I just wanted to ask one more question.
Yes.
Can any type of vehicle get under
Yes.
the? Okay.
So the street remains open.
Any other conversation? No
Thank you.
conversation for both bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2152, resolution granting unto Scott Pipitone their successors and assigns a privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense an access platform entrance, a bike rack, and to relocate a tree bed at 3933 Perrysville Avenue in the 26th Ward, 6th Council District.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second.
Second.
Conversation. No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Next bill, please.
Bill 2153, resolution granting unto Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh their successors and assign the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a new canopy, a new sign, and protective bullards at 4724 Baum Boulevard, 8th Ward, 7th Council District.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Conversation. No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Resolution granting unto Nicola Diaco their successors and assign the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use of their own cost and expense an ADA entrance ramp at 2515 Penn Avenue, 2nd Ward, 7th Council District.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Conversation. No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2155, resolution granting unto 1.1 Yoga their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense an ADA entrance ramp at 5019 Penn Avenue, 10th Ward, 9th Council District.
Need a
Motion
motion.
to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Thank you very much, Director. That takes us, I believe, to Land Use and Economic Development Committee. Ms. Gross is the chair. We have a new paper.
2140, resolution amending resolution number 121, providing for the implementation of a residential sticker parking program in the Beachview neighborhood pursuant to Pittsburgh Code Chapter 549, so as to amend the streets and remove addresses included in Area T.
Ms.
Motion
Gross.
Motion to approve?
Need a second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Gross.
No discussion?
No discussion. Ms. Harris.
As soon as I can.
Ms. Harris.
She
I
said
have
no
to
discussion.
have some questions.
Oh, she wants to have discussion.
Oh, you want
Yeah, Ms. Harris is
Direct-
at.
okay.
Yes, she wants to have conversation about this in your council district.
Actually, is it?
parking area?
It's in Beachview, right?
Beachview, no, I'm sorry, Beachview. It's in,
It's Anthony Colquitt, or my district, one of ours.
It's in, I don't know whose council district.
We don't care.
Peachtree.
We're just happy. that
Yes,
it's-
answer Mrs. Harris's concerns, please. Ms. Harris.
Okay, I have questions.
Okay.
I don't know if they're really should call concerns. Is this adding to a, what is it, Area T?
Yes, it is. Andrew Dash, Acting Director of City Planning. This, there was, I think, a mistake on the cover letter. This is a one-block expansion of Area T along the 1700 block of Suburban Avenue, which is adjacent to the Westfield T-stop. So the residents petitioned into the program. We did a parking study, met all the thresholds of the program. So, you know, they meet all the requirements for addition into the program.
It's like 70% of the residents on that street, right? have
Yes,
decided.
over 70% of the residents on the street did petition into the
supportive.
program.
So who are we to question?
And the, you know, they meet the thresholds of both over 75% of the block being parked during peak hours, as well as more than 15% of those being commuter parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so did you put the right signs up on Compromise Street above Algate General yet, since it was part of that one assignment, and the signs were never put up there because I don't think they understood they had to go up to the top street to finish it like this?
I'm not sure exactly which instance you're talking about. I mean, I know there was.
It's behind Allegheny General, and it's up at the top of the city steps. The street name is Compromise.
Okay, we can look into that.
Please. Thank you.
Any other conversation?
Rev, just real quick, Andrew, thanks for being here. So when they apply for permit parking, they need how many percentage of the block, Andrew?
To petition into the program, they need at least 70% of the residents.
70%. They get 70%, and we pretty much okay it, or it has to also be in our zone near?
What happens after that point is we have to do a parking study. And so we went and did a parking study in August for this block specifically. And when we went out there, I think the parking study showed that 100% of the spaces were being utilized at the time.
Yeah, I saw that study.
We had multiple out-of-state plates, so it automatically,
Right.
that already hit the 15%, the over 15% of commuters. So we
Okay,
didn't.
so there's a
we didn't
formula.
run license plates, so like we always normally do, because there were the out-of-state plates that were on the block already exceeded the commuter requirement.
So there's a formula that you go by, basically, from the study?
There is, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yep, thanks.
Any other conversation? Mr.
Did you
Lavelle?
write down Compromise?
I did, yes,
Okay.
Councilwoman.
See, he did.
Mr. Lavelle?
See, you're right.
Right here.
Aha. Boy, you write tiny. Want you to remember that.
She leaned over and said he didn't even write it down. How's he going to remember it?
Question, we could probably chat about it offline, but I just thought about it. There's, on Ewart Drive in the Upper Hill, there's residential permit parking, but it stops sort of at the top of the street. But there are commuters who park in the bend. And recently, a couple residents asked, could the permit parking be extended for the sole purpose of stopping the commuters from parking in the bend? I don't know if that's possible. But we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can follow up offline.
Yeah.
You know, it may be a conversation with Director Ricks around, you know, other signage that may be necessary to restrict traffic. You know, just not knowing that specific location.
It literally just came to my mind. So we'll
whether
talk
residential
about
permit parking or whether other means, I'm sure that there's something that either Department of Mobility and Infrastructure or us through residential permit parking can assist with.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. That exhausts the land use and economic committee. That's none one more. Next bill, please.
Bill 2160, resolution further amending resolution number 863, entitled Adopting and Approving the 2019 Capital Budget and the 2019 CDBG Program and the 2019 through 2024 Capital Improvement Program by reducing Children to Champions North Shore Stallions by $12,500 increase in Northside Youth Athletic Association by $12,500, and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That takes us to Innovation, Performance, and Access Management Committee. Mrs. Strasburger is the chair. We have a new paper.
Bill 2156, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works and the director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an amended agreement with Cartograph Systems, Inc. in order to continue licensing application software and for the purchase of associated subscription, maintenance, cloud hosting, and professional services.
Need a motion?
Motion to hold 1 week.
Need a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That takes us to the last committee of the day, Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, with the exciting Mr. O'Connor as its chair. I have a deferred paper.
Bill 983, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Finance to execute a quitclaim deed and any other necessary appropriate documents conveying as is all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in designated city-owned properties to the URA for consideration of $1 each, contingent upon the mayor and director of the Department of Finance first entering into a cooperation agreement with the URA setting forth the rights and obligations of the city and the URA relating to these initial conveyances, and further setting forth the rights and obligation of the city and the URA relating to the subsequent disposition of these properties to third parties.
Need a motion, Mr. Connor?
To table.
Second.
All those, we need a roll call vote for the table, please.
It's been a year and a half.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Mrs. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
President Kraus. Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith.
Aye.
Mrs. Strasburger. Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0
Thank you
noes.
very much. The motion's table, the bill's table. It takes us to the last bill of the day, I believe, which is new paper.
Bill 2145, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for Western Jefferson residential development at 514 West Jefferson Street.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Any conversation? No conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. That brings us to meeting announcements. Well, I'll do mine last. Ms. Harris.
Yes, I have a couple students here helping me out today, and they were a little late, I guess, due to the bus and the rain and everything. So Sean Younger and Donald Mobley, you want to stand up? Donald, raise your hand, Donald. Okay. Donald is 20 years old. He goes to Carrick High School, and he's from Brighton Heights. He's interested in being a police officer. And we have Sean. There you go. He goes to Pittsburgh Charter School. And, Oh, you graduated? Okay. Did you graduate from Carrick yet? Yes. Okay, they're both graduates of both schools. He's also 20 years old, and he's from East Allegheny. And his interests are researching military aircraft and being a helicopter mechanic. So I just wanted everyone to be able to meet these two fine gentlemen that I have to assist me in my office today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lavelle?
Yes, this afternoon there is a public hearing which was petitioned by a resident in my district, Mr. Khalid Rahim, on reparations in the city of Pittsburgh. And unfortunately, I have a meeting which will not allow me to attend. But I did just want to say that this actually is a sort of a serious issue for us as a whole country. There have been reparations for many other ethnic groups within our country's history, and I do believe we should be looking at this seriously. I believe it's H.R. Bill 40 that's currently in Congress to actually set up a commission to study this issue, and I'm certainly supportive of that, although I can't vote on it. But I just wanted to say that I will follow up with Mr. Rahim myself to better understand what his position is and what he wanted to share with council today, although I can't be there this afternoon.
It's House Bill 40, did you say?
HR 40, I believe, is the bill currently before Congress that would set up a commission to actually study and bring back proposals on how to address reparations for descendants with African descent.
Any other, Ms. Gross?
I'm sorry, a different subject entirely, but I wanted to draw attention to council because it's been in the media that our special events committee at the city recently gave permits for 3 Saturdays in November to close down streets in the Strip District. And the merchants in the Strip are negatively impacted by these closures. This is prime holiday season. Many of us, probably most of us, probably every single one of us here has been shopping in the Strip District on a Saturday, especially in anticipation of the holidays, as does most of the region. People are coming in to get 50 pounds of this or that, or they've got family visiting and they want to bring them to the Strip District. There's a veterans parade. There's not a veterans parade. I'm actually not sure the names of each of 2 parades and a foot race that are scheduled on Saturdays in November during the peak shopping hours, closing streets. And I feel that those parade routes could be elsewhere, as could the foot race. So the Strip District merchants had a meeting Monday night and asked me to ask the administration to amend those routes in advance of the events, and I've done that. But I just wanted to draw your attention to it because we can't assume that just because someone wants an event in a neighborhood, that they should have that event permit, right? So even if it's a nonprofit that's raising funds, you know what, I would have to read it. I'm sorry, I had so many things I was doing this morning that I've kind of spaced out on the actual events. I may be able to find it while I'm speaking. And this keeps coming up, and I believe that there needs to be some kind of discussion. It's wonderful that people host events in the city. We welcome visitors. We're happy to be the kind of host for the region to come here and enjoy the city. But there need to be boundaries, right? Just because someone wants to have a come up party in your front yard, they don't necessarily aren't allowed to do that. And there need to be conditions, and there need to be some standards. And I think we've maybe crossed over a threshold where we're permitting like we did 20 years ago, and there's a lot more impact. There are a lot more permits being issued, and there's a lot more cost, not just to city overhead in terms of policing and DPW cleanup and stuff, but as well as the impacts. How much should our neighborhoods have to bear that cost, right? When we have 3 events in a row of that negatively impact revenue, and especially in a place like the Strip District, which no one wants to negatively impact, and everyone wants to be there, but that doesn't mean that they should automatically get those permits. And as we know, we all lined up for the Labor Day parade in the Hill District and not through the Strip District, and so I think there can be other routes there. So I'm going to say it is, okay, I'm going to read them out loud, and I finally got them, sorry. On November 2nd, EQT is doing a 10-mile race, shutting down Liberty, Smallman, and Penn Avenue. That's a Saturday. Saturday, November 9th, it is Veterans Day, so I was correct, sorry. Shutting down Liberty, but also impacts side streets, so it makes it really hard for employees and shoppers to get in. And thirdly, a Saturday, November 30th, which I believe is also Small Business Saturday, when we are supposed to be encouraging people to shop at our small businesses. These are mainly locally owned businesses. Again, I spoke to with each and every one of them. It is the WPXI's annual holiday parade from 9 to 11. Why it has to line up in the Strip District is not clear to me, and I'm requesting that it be moved. There's plenty of time to move the parade route and to find a different setup area for it. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. So thank you for your time.
Can I just say something to that real quick? Because I have to go to cut a ribbon, actually. But Councilwoman Gross, you and I have been talking about the cost of special events to the residents, to the community groups, and to the city overall. Having them, not having them, what we could do to make it easier, and at the same time, beneficial to the community that they're having these events. And on Grandview Avenue, they have a lot of events that shut down that area, but it's still a residential area, and a lot of tourists come through there. So. And the other area is always Main Street, South Main and the West End, which encompasses a lot of churches. So I think, and they're always on a Sunday, the events. So that brings a whole nother set of concerns to the area. But even with, the arena down by the Penguins, when they have events and the different things down in Uptown, I know that it impedes upon people attending Epiphany Church and different things. So I think that having those conversations, how many events is a normal expectation of the public to tolerate and to support, and whether it's even an issue for some of the residents. Some people, may actually just love these events. I think some of them are great events. They're part of what makes Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, right? But at the same time, we have to think about the impact to the local residents and to the local community groups that are spending a lot more money to put on these events out of their own pockets. So I'm looking forward to working with you on this. And I mean, maybe after we start having some conversations, we'll have a post agenda about it and figure out, hear from the public too, and hear what their concerns are. Thank you for your work on this.
Ms. Harris.
Yeah, PWXI, I mean, Channel 11, I think they should be over on the north side anyhow, so they could come over to the North Shore, and the veterans are always welcome on North Shore. And EQT, I think they have a building on the North Shore.
I don't know. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and all the parades used to, years ago, start on Federal Street and come down and come across the bridge. I talked to Jeremy from Nova, and that's when he first came here. I said, when you make some money, which I think he's doing now, Nova is a great success. Maybe we could make a tunnel underneath Nova and come back the way it used to be. So maybe I will pass that on to him, see if he made enough yet, or what we could do there. But send him over North Shore.
All right, so a couple things. First of all, Mr. Will.
Yeah, real quick, since we're having the conversation, I'm open to that, certainly conversation, but I think as we're also begin having this sort of equity conversation within our city, that we should then look at the impact of open streets and what that does to business districts, as well as even city-sponsored events like the Great Race, that is always on a Sunday, that always makes it hard, particularly for those who attend black churches throughout our city, to actually make it to those services on, huh? And all, but I'm just saying, it has all churches and synagogues that attempt to worship on Sundays, and what is the impact that they have as well. Mm-hmm. So I just think we should just expand the conversation to be a fuller conversation of what is in the best interest of all of the city.
Do you think? Corey?
Any other conversation? I want to have to make this announcement. Two quick things. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, Council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 2019-2033, a petition as it relates to awarding reparations for black residents of Pittsburgh. I will bite just a little bit on this. Anyone who wants to understand about reparations, those who are looking on at home, I would highly recommend you read a book called The Debt by Professor Randall Robinson, formerly the executive director of Trans-Africa, former faculty member at Penn State University, an attorney, and I think it's an extraordinarily important book to read. Second of all, in terms of our city, and I may have more conversation about this in the next couple of weeks, but I really believe if we're going to talk about reparations, in my mind, what we really should focus on is the rebuilding of historically African American communities, the rebuilding of poor communities in the city of Pittsburgh, making that a priority for our city. If we want to change if we want to change our city, and we're serious about, we had a study done a few weeks ago and talked about how African Americans in our city are living inequitably. We'll have study after study after study, and it'll be said the same thing will happen over and over again. It will not change until we as a city decide to disproportionately invest in these communities where the majority of African Americans live. They live in African American communities, and if we are serious about improving their lives, we will, in my opinion, invest over the next 10 years about $1 billion into those communities, which sounds like a lot of money, but really we need about 20%, about $200 million over the next 10 years to about $20 million a year. And then if with that kind of investment, we absolutely can make a significant difference. The money is available. It's not a question of the money, it's a question of political will. And for us, all of us, the nonprofit community, the large institutions, the medical facilities, the banks, all of us should come together with the city, county, state, and federal government and create this fund, the leverage so that we can rebuild these communities. And that's been, at least in part, my work. And if we want to have this conversation, I'm welcome to have this conversation. And since we're going to have it this afternoon at 2 o'clock, I think it's a good time to have it in a more broad way. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I think we're all here today to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
Couldn't we say something before?
Oh, sure. I thought that I didn't see.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Ms. Harris.
say that, you know, being on school board and seeing where children come from, I think some would fall through the cracks if you just say African American, because there's an awful lot of poor children, period, and poor communities. And I don't want to leave anyone out.
So let me go backwards. I have argued for 12 years about poor communities, not specifically in terms of race and or gender. However, I also will tell you that the vast majority of African Americans live in poor communities, and I will reiterate, and I'll defend it, that there are poor pockets in Pittsburgh, but there are no poor white communities in Pittsburgh. There are only poor black communities in Pittsburgh.
Or mixed communities.
They are majority black. There are sections.
I didn't say that.
But it's true. There are sections. If you're, and it's interesting, I had this conversation with someone from the county. We were on I'm on the board of overseeing the Summer Youth Employment Program. And I made that statement to a county official that there were no poor white areas in the city, and the area I said there isn't. And she says, well, what about Carrick? I said, well, no, you cannot take Carrick. It's not a poor community, it's a middle class community. If you take the income level of Carrick and compare it to the income level of, let's say, Homewood, right, where the income is about $17,000 and Carrick's probably about $40,000, they're not at all connected. And so it just, you know, I know that and again, you're my friend, Ms. Harris, and I do understand your concern to lessen the argument in terms of the need to empower these neighborhoods. And so to me, it's not racial, it's just truth. There has been 50-year disinvestment since 1968 in those communities, and that's where the vacant land is, that's where the shootings are at, that's where the lack of economic achievement is at, that's where the lack of jobs, entrepreneurs. I mean, the study just came out and said that this is one of the worst places, this region is one of the worst places for black people in the United States, and to deny, and most of them live in African American communities, to deny that reality is to deny every other written thing in our city. And so I'm going to kind of push back on that and say that it is time for us to invest in those communities. And it will be poor people. It will not affect just African Americans, although they will disproportionately receive benefit.
It's poor people. I mean, I grew up as one of the poorest people.
Except that poor whites,
and
most
I
poor
live
whites
in a
don't live in
mixed-
poor communities in Pittsburgh.
Well,
they just don't.
And there are those that do.
But most do not. But, and
Oh,
so we
I'm
wanna,
not looking at most. I just want to make sure that we do not
I think
have.
if you rebuild communities like Larmer, which we are rebuilding, it is not exclusively African American. There are all races that are living in Larimer. And when you rebuild these communities, you will have a place for all races to participate. I'm not suggesting that the benefits will only affect African Americans. I'm suggesting that we target, though, the investment in those communities where the bulk of African Americans live, and as we redo them, we will change them from places of concentrated poverty into mixed income, stable, interracial communities.
Hopefully, they won't be thrown out like they were in East Liberty. So I have to say.
That was before my time on council. Any other conversation? With motion to, there's a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting. The second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye. Opposers, nay. We are adjourned.